So I guess a full bolt-on Fiesta is slower than a stock one, go figure, so. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're gonna be taking my 2015 Fiesta ST for some Dragy runs, and we're gonna see how it does compared to stock with the modifications that are done to it, so let's jump right into it. All right, so a little bit about the car and what's done to it. Like I said, it's a 2015 Ford Fiesta ST. It's pretty much what you would consider a full bolt-on setup. So it's got a lot of Whoosh parts on it. It's got their V3 intercooler, the full intake. It's got a catless downpipe with a really obnoxious exhaust, which I will kind of cover here shortly. Outside of that, that's really about all that's done to it. It does have a Dizzy off-the-shelf E30 tune, which really woke the car up a ton. I think the biggest issue that we're gonna have with the Dragy runs is traction. I've got some decent tires on here. Unfortunately, this car just eats through front tires. Got a little cameo from the Blackhawk there. That's pretty sick. But yeah, I think the biggest issue is going to be traction. Unfortunately, these cars come from the factory with an open front differential. It wasn't bad when it was stock, but as the power has increased, especially with the E30 tune, it picks up a lot of low-end torque. So it just struggles for traction all the way to pretty much third. I think if I lowered the PSI in the tires, that would probably help some, but I don't know that it's enough to really make a huge difference. So we're just going to do the runs regardless and see how it does. So some other things that are done to the car, you can probably tell, it's got some Konig dekagrams on it. Pretty common wheel for these cars. There's not a ton of wheel options. I was able to pick these up secondhand. These are actually 15x8s, which is kind of uncommon because they don't make 15 for this car. Konig doesn't in the dekagrams. So I was fortunate enough to have a friend who was selling his Fiesta, and I was able to get the Konig dekagrams and also the Whoosh big brake kit, which has been an awesome modification on this car. Really increased the braking performance, although I will say these cars really don't need it from the factory, I don't think. I was not unhappy with the brakes. These cars just don't weigh a whole lot, so, but it was a nice modification nonetheless, especially with the stainless steel brake lines, really improved the brake feel. As far as the exhaust goes, like I said, it does have a Whoosh V3 catless downpipe. It did at one point have a Borla catback on it, which is also kind of uncommon for these cars. You don't see those around a whole lot. But unfortunately, the Borla setup had kind of a weird drone to it. So it had this really strange sound that we were trying to figure out, almost like a train whistle. And so I ended up cutting the stock resonator out to see if that would help. And then it was still there, catless downpipe. I was like, well, maybe that'll free up some flow. Maybe it's some type of odd flow issue. That didn't seem to change, but at that point I had already chopped the muffler off. So it's pretty much straight piped. It's really obnoxious. I'm gonna post some exhaust clips here. It's honestly not as bad as you would think, because on turbo cars, the turbo does kind of act as a muffler. So it's not nearly as loud, honestly, as even like my 04 Cobra, which is very loud. But it is really droney on the highway, so that part is a little annoying, and it's a little too buzzy. At some point I'm going to do a full exhaust on it. I'm not sure what I'm going to go with. I think the thermal R&D from Whoosh is probably the best setup that you can get. It is more on the expensive side, so I think for the time being what I'm probably going to do is at least do the vibrant ultra quiet resonator and weld that in on this exhaust setup, since I've already hacked it to pieces. That's a pretty common setup as well that guys do to get rid of some drone and some of the buzzy or raspiness of this exhaust. So we'll try that and see how it goes. But nonetheless, that's kind of the car, what's done to it. So we're gonna jump into it and see how this thing does on some Dragy runs. All right, so before we get to our spot where we're gonna do the Dragy runs, I just wanted to take a little bit to talk about kind of my thoughts on this car and kind of share that with you guys. So, you know, I really love this car. It doesn't do a lot of things great. You know, the interior is kind of cheap and plasticky. It's pretty small. The back seats are fit for somebody who maybe doesn't have legs. It doesn't have a ton of storage space. It's not loaded with creature comforts. It's got enough, but you know, there's really nothing like spectacular about the car. But what it does do well, it does extremely well. And that's why I love this car so much. And I've driven and owned a lot of cars, and this has overall been one of my favorite cars. The chassis is phenomenal. It handles extremely well. It feels like you're in a little go-kart. It's not fast, but it's pretty quick for what it is, especially once you do some bolt-on modifications. It really wakes the car up a ton. And I've always kind of lived by this motto, I guess, and I didn't really come up with this, but I love it. I would rather drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow. And to give you an example of that, I've got my 04 Cobra. It makes somewhere over 500 wheel horsepower, so it's a lot faster than this car. But where I live, it's so hard to even utilize any of it. I mean, by the time you do one gear pull, you're going to jail speeds or you're slamming into the back of somebody. So you really don't get to wring the car out a whole lot. Whereas this, I can drive it every day and I get to go through the gears and I get to beat on it, and it's a ton of fun. So, you know, like I said, it doesn't really do a lot of things great. There's a lot of negative things you could speak on about this car, but I don't think that's what you buy it for. I think you buy it because it handles really well. It's got cool seats in it if you get the Recaros. And it's pretty quick, and they really do well with modifications. This engine's super reliable. I haven't had any major issues with it. Matter of fact, the only thing I've had to do to it is replace the throttle body. And outside of that, I'm heading towards 130,000 miles. And for a while now, it's been tuned and had stuff done to it. And fingers crossed, I haven't had any issues. So there's really not a whole lot of major complaints. You know, I think you just have to know what you're buying this car for. So I just wanted to share kind of my honest thoughts with the car, but we'll go ahead and jump into doing some Dragy runs. All right, so we've arrived at our location for doing the Dragy runs. So the stock figures on this car are kind of mixed, but it seems that, you know, they were able to get around a 6.5 to a 6.90 to 60. So we'll see how close we can get to that. I'm gonna measure some other figures as well, because I think with traction being an issue, that's not gonna be the greatest measure of how much quicker this car is than a factory one, but nonetheless, we're gonna give it a rip. Roads are a little damp, so that's not helping either. I do have the traction control off just because this car interferes so much if you have it on. As soon as it spins, it just kills all the power. So we'll go ahead and do our first run here and see what we get. Bang the rev limiter a little bit there.
One eternity later.
Alright, let's see what we got. So 0 to 60, oh god, it was terrible. 0 to 60, we got a 7.45. Let's see, quarter miles in 15 seconds. Oh man, that's terrible. Yeah, that's about what I expected. Wow, yeah. All right, we'll see if we can do another run and maybe launch a little softer, because I don't know if the video is going to portray that very well, but man, it spun really bad. Also kind of banged it off the rev limiter, and I didn't mean to. But we'll do another run and see what it does. I've also captured some other times, because I think where you're going to see this car is a lot faster than a stock one is when it's already rolling. So I went ahead and captured, theoretically, a 40 to 100 mile an hour and a 30 to 100, because by that point, by about 30, the car should be hooking up pretty well, especially if you're already rolling. So, you know, we'll kind of compare those figures to some previous times I've done before as well, and see how that measures up. So, but we'll get at least one more run in and see if we can't get it to hook a little bit better. Maybe the tires are a little warm now. All right, let's at least get one more run in and see what we can do. That felt better. We'll see. Okay, so a lot better, but still not great. 7.130 to 60. I can't see the quarter mile time. 8th mile was a 9.7, so that was definitely faster, but still not great. It just struggles to hook up from a dead stop. So I guess a full bolt-on Fiesta is slower than a stock one. Go figure. So, like I said, this car is in a sense slower from 0 to 60, but once it's moving, it's a lot quicker than a factory car. I'll throw up some figures here. I've done some of these tests before off camera, and even from a stage 193 tune to the E30 tune, it picks up a lot of power, and you can see that in the times. I'll put those up here. It's a good bit quicker once it's moving. So anyways, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments down below what you'd like to see next. I'm planning on doing some content with the R7, but I've also got my 04 Cobra. If you guys would like to see that, maybe see some Dragy runs or just a video of that car, let me know in the comments down below. If you don't mind subscribing, liking the video, helps me out a ton. It's motivation to keep doing this kind of stuff. But anyways, we'll see you guys in the next one.